The creation of Pakistan was never fully accepted by British leaders. Among the Mountbatten clearly expressed his lack of support and the faith in the Muslim League idea of Pakistan. Jinnah refused Mountbatten's offer to serve as Governor General of Pakistan when Mountbatten was asked by Collins and Lapierre if he would have subjugated Pakistan had he known that Jinnah was dying of tuberculosis. He replied, probably, most probably. Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani, a respected Deobandi alim who accompanied the position of Sheikhul Islam in Pakistan in 1949. The Maulana Maududi of Jamaat Islami played an prevalent role in the demand for an Islamic constitution. Maududi demanded the Constitutional Assembly make explicit declaration affirming the supreme sovereignty of God and supremacy of the Sharia in Pakistan. The significant role of the efforts of the Jamaat Islami and the ulama was the passage of Objective Resolution in March 1949. The Objective Resolution, which Liaquat Ali Khan called the second most important step in Pakistan history, declared the sovereignty over the entire universe belonged to alone, and the authority which he had delegated to the state of Pakistan through its people for being exercised within the limits prescribed by him is a sacred trust. The Objective Resolution has been incorporated as a preamble of the Constitution of 1956 and 1962 and 1973. Democracy was stalled by the martial law and that had been enforced by President Sikandar Mirza, who was replaced by the Army Chief General Ayub Khan after the adopting a presidential system in 1962. The country experienced expansional growth until a second war in the India in 1965 that led an economic drop-down and wide-scale public disapproval in 1967, consolidating control from Ayub Khan in 1969. President Yahya had a deal with a devastating cyclone that caused 50,000 deaths in East Pakistan. President Yahya Khan had a deal with a devastating cyclone that caused 5 lakh deaths in East Pakistan. In 1970, Pakistan had its first democratic election, and since independence meant to mark a transition from military rule to democracy. But after the East Pakistani Awami League won against the Pakistan People Party (PPP), Yahya Khan and the military establishment refused to hand over power. Operation Searchlight, a military crackdown on the Bengali nationalist movement, led to the declaration of independence and the waging of war of liberation by the Bengali Mukhti Bahini forces of East Pakistan, which in West Pakistan was described as the civil war and opposed a war of liberation. Independent researchers estimate that between 3 lakh to 5 lakh civilians died during the period, while the Bangladesh government puts the number of deaths at the 3 million, a figure that is now nearly universally regarded as excessively inflated. Some academics such as Rudolf and Rummel and the Runak Janahwaz say both sides committed genocide. Others such as Richard Sisson and Leo E. Rose believed that there was no genocide. In response to Indian support for the ensuring in East Pakistan, primitive strikes to India by Pakistan Air Force, Navy and Marines sparked a conventional war in 1971. In response to India's support for insurgency in East Pakistan, preemptive strike on India by Pakistan Air Force, Navy and Marines sparks a conventional war in 1971 that resulted in an Indian victory and East Pakistan gaining the independence as Bangladesh, with Pakistan surrendering in the war Yahya Khan was replaced by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto as president. The country worked towards the promulgating its constitution and putting the country on the road to democracy. Democratic rule resumed from 1972 to 1977 as the era of self-consciousness, intellectual leftism, nationalism, and nationwide reconstruction. In 1972, Pakistan emerged as the ambitious plan of develop a nuclear deterrence capacity with the goal of preventing a foreign invasion. The country's first nuclear weapon plant was inaugurated in that year, accelerated in response to India's first nuclear test in 1974. The Clash program was completed in 1979. The Crash program was completed in 1979. Democracy ended with a military rule in 1977 against the leftist PPP. The democracy ended with a military coup in 1977 against the leftist PPP, which saw General Ziaul Haq become the president in 1978. From 1978 to 1988, President Zia corporatism and economic is Islamization initiatives led to Pakistan become one of the fastest growing economy in South Asia, which while building up the country's nuclear program, increasing Islamization, and the rise of homegrown conversations philosophy. Pakistan helped us subsidize and distribute U.S. response to faction of Mujahideen against the USSR in intervention in the communist Afghan Pakistan Northwest founder Fortune province become a base for anti-Soviet Pakistan Northwest Fortner province become a base for the anti-Soviet Afghan fighters, with the province influential Deobandi ulama playing a significant role in encouraging and organizing the jihad. President Zia died in the plane crash in 1988, and Benazir Bhutto, daughter of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was elected in the country's first female prime minister. The PPP was followed by conservative prime Pakistan Muslim League known, and over the next decade, the leader of two parties fought for power and alternating in office while the country situation worsened. Economic indicators fell sharply in contract in the 1980s. The period is marked by prolonged stagflation, instability, corruption, and nationalism. Geopolitical rivalry with India. President Zia died in the plane crash in 1988, and Benazir Bhutto, daughter of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was elected as the country's first female prime minister. The PPP was followed by conservative Pakistan Muslim League and over the next decade, and leaders of two parties fought for power, alternating in office while the country's situation worsened. Economic indicators fell sharply in contrast to the 1980s. In contrast to the 1980s, the period is marked by prolonged stagflation, instability, corruption, nationalism, geopolitical rivalry with India, and the clash of left-wing, right-wing ideologies. As PMLN secured a supermajority in elections in 1997, Sharif authorized nuclear testing Shaghi 1, Shaghi 2 as a retaliation retaliation to the second nuclear test ordered by India, led by Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in May 1988. Military tension between two countries in the Kargil district led the Kargil War of 1999. The turmoil in civil-military relations allowed General Pervez Musharraf to take overthrow the bloodless coup that military tension between the two countries in Kargil district led the Kargil War of 1999, and the turmoil in civil-military relations allowed General Pervez Musharraf to take overthrow a bloodless coup d'etat. Musharraf governed Pakistan as chief executive from 1999 to 2001 as the president from 2001 to 2008, and a period of enlightenment, social liberation, extensive economic reforms, and direct involvement in the US-led war on terrorism. While the National Assembly historically completed its full five, when the National Assembly historically completed its full 5 years from on 15 December November 2007, the new election was called by Election Commission. When the National Assembly historically completed its full 5 year term on 15 November 2007, the new elections were called by Election Commission after the assassination of Benazir Bhutto in 2007. The PPP secured the most votes in the election of 2008, appointing party member Yusuf Raza Gilani as Prime Minister, threatened the impeachment. President Musharraf resigned on impeachment. President Musharraf resigned on 18 August 2008 and was succeeded by Asif Ali Zardari. Clashes with the judicature promoting Gilani disqualification from the parliament as the prime minister in June 2012. By its own financial calculation, Pakistan involvement in war on terrorism has cost up to 118 billion, 60,000 casualties, and more than 1.8 million displaced civilians. The general election held in 2013 saw the PMLN almost achieve a super majority, following which Nawaz Sharif was elected as the prime minister, returning the post of the third time in 14 years in a democratic transition in was elected as the Prime Minister, returning to the post for the third time in 14 years in a democratic transition. In 2018, Imran Khan, the chairman of PTI, won the 2018 Pakistan's general election with 116 general seats and become the 22nd Prime Minister of Pakistan in the election of National Assembly of Pakistan from Prime Minister by getting 176 votes against Shehbaz Sharif, chairman of PMLN, who got 96 votes. Role of Islam. Pakistan is the only country to have been created on the name of Islam. The idea of Pakistan, which had received overwhelming popular support among the Indian Muslims, especially those in the province of British India, where Muslims were in minority, such as United Province, was articulated the term of Islamic State by the Muslim League leadership. The ulema, Islamic clergy, and Jinnah had developed a close association with the ulama. Upon his death was described by one such alim, Maulana Shabbir Ahmad Usmani, as the greatest Muslim after Aurangzeb, and had someone who desired to unite the Muslims of the world under the banner of Islam. The Objective Revolution in March 1949, which declared God as the sole sovereign over the entire universe, represented the first foremost of the Objective Resolution in March 1949, which declared God as the sole sovereign over the entire universe, represented the first formal step to transform Pakistan into Islamic State. Muslim League leader Chaudhry Khaliquz-Zama asserted that Pakistan could only truly become an Islamic state after bringing all believers of Islam into a single political unit. Keith, uh, Keith Callard Politics. Keith, one of the earliest scholars on Pakistani politics, observed that observed that Pakistani believed in the essential unity of purpose and outlook in the Muslim world, and assumed the Muslim from